Okay, now we're going to go a little bit more in depth on how to read a statement of financial position. So you're going to want to have the consolidated financial statements from the ARC of the United States and their affiliates out in front of you as we go through this. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at the assets, and those are contained in Exhibit A of the financials. Assets are going to be listed in three categories: our current assets, our fixed assets, and our other assets. So, I'm going to point out things that I see, and, I'm going to be looking at the line items themselves. I'm also going to be looking at the comparison year over year. So we've had a substantial increase in cash and cash equivalents. Almost $1 million, which that's a pretty big jump in 1 year. Our investments went up. So obviously it was probably a good year in the stock market, which we know that, 2020 to 2021 pretty much was. Accounts receivable. So those are people that owe us money. So the number of people, or the total amount that people owe us, is down, which is what we want to see, right? We don't want to see more people owing us money. We have about 120,000 in grants that are due in, and things look okay. Our total current assets went up. Our fixed assets went down. So our furniture and equipment went down by, roughly $400 and some $1,000. So that's interesting. We may have sold something. Maybe we, came off of a lease of some sort, or who knows. Vehicles stayed about the same. The website obviously has a huge value. So take off depreciation. Our net fixed assets went down, but we can see why that is, because it's the furniture and equipment line item. We're not exactly sure what happened yet, but we know something happened. When we look at other assets, nothing out of the ordinary there. Investments went up a little bit. Total other assets, went up by basically the amount that the investments went up, and overall our total assets went up, right? Almost $3 million. And so we can see why that is, at least in terms of the paper. What we don't know yet is why cash went up substantially. Was there something that happened, from that very first line item of cash and cash equivalents that turned something into cash? Maybe we got a huge donation. Who knows? The statement of financial position is just going to tell us where we were on December 31st, and we have to keep going in order to find out more. Okay, next up, we're going to take a look at our liabilities for the ARC. Our accounts payable went up a little bit. That's not a huge, substantial number. I'm not worried about it. That means that we owe people, $1.1 million. But it looks like, for whatever reason, that is where we are as an organization. We don't yet know why. Maybe the notes to the financials will help us understand that. But we do carry a large accounts payable balance. Our long-term liabilities, deferred rent, you can see that went down substantially. What that tells us is maybe we signed a lease on something, and, we paid one more year of lease payments. And so maybe we only have one more year to go. There's $85,000 for whatever reason that we still owe on a long-term liability. Other than that, I don't see anything except for what's not there. What I don't see is mortgages payable. For a lot of organizations, you will see this. And what that means is that I own a building and I'm in the process of paying it off. This organization does not seem to have a building that they own. Instead, we're seeing things like rent or maybe leases. And so that's an interesting thing to note. For a $20 million a year organization, they are not asset heavy in terms of their physical plant. So that brings us to net assets. And remember, net assets are the difference between assets and liabilities. And so what we can see is this organization is in decent financial shape. They have $5.7 million in undesignated funds. That's a substantial jump from last year. And so we're going to need to, as we go through the rest of the financial statements, see if we can answer why that is. Why did our net assets go up so much? Well, on some level, our liabilities went down, but mostly it's because our overall assets went up. It's nice to see that they're undesignated, but if you look down a little bit and you see the number that is with donor restrictions, we've got $11.7 million in money on our, or, assets. I shouldn't say money, I should say assets that are restricted in some way. So we're going to need to pay attention as we go through the rest of the financial statements to see if, what does that mean for the organization? Normally, we would want to see undesignated as high as possible and those assets with donor restrictions as low as possible. So even though we have a net asset increase, we're still not exactly ready to say, this organization is good to go. And so that's how we want to think about looking at a statement of financial position. And that's how you read the first financial statement. When you're ready, you can go on to the next one.